This is a game called Evolution Climate. If you've ever played Evolution before, this is essentially the next step forward in that game. It is a standalone game, so you don't have to add it to the original. It works on its own. But if you haven't played it before, in Evolution Climate, basically you are dinosaurs evolving and competing over a finite amount of plant food. So you're fighting over that limited resource, but you're also evolving special traits which make you better at going for that resource, or which potentially obstruct other players from going for that resource. Or potentially you could evolve and become carnivores, and all of a sudden you're not eating the plant food in the middle of the table. Instead, you are eating the other dinosaurs in the game. Game's going to have, each round is going to have a set number of phases, and at the end of the game you're going to get points based on a few different things, the biggest factor of which will be how much food you've eaten throughout the game. So what we're going to do is, at the beginning of the game, you're going to have a board like this that represents a species of dinosaurs. It's going to start off with a green marker here. This means that there is one population of that species. And you're going to start off with a brown marker here. That means that species has a population with a body size of 1. So each player is going to have one of those boards. And if at any point in the game you lose all of your dinosaurs, then you'll get a fresh card that'll start off at 1 and 1. So you'll never start a turn with 0 dinosaurs in front of you. So you're just going to start with one of these boards. We're going to start the first turn of the game. Somebody is going to be the start player, and they're going to have this fantastic dinosaur marker in front of them. Each round is going to consist of 5 phases. Phase 1, we're going to deal out cards. So the way that's going to work is every player is going to get 4 cards plus 1 card for every species that they have. So everyone is going to start off and get 5 cards. You'll always get at least 5 cards to start a turn. But again, you could have more species as you go along, in which case you're going to get more cards. So you're going to deal out the cards. Everyone gets their hand of cards. Second phase you're going to do is you're going to select food cards. So you've got your cards in your hands. You're going to choose 1 card, and you're going to play it face down in the middle of this board. You're going to see each card has a number in the lower right-hand corner. And what we're going to do in a little bit is we're going to reveal all the cards. We're going to add up those numbers, and that's going to determine how much food we add. There's one other thing that's going to happen with these cards. We'll get to that in a little bit. But you're going to choose a card. You're going to put it face down in the middle of the table. And let's say a couple other players did too for the sake of this example. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to play cards. So we're going to start with whoever is our start player, the one who's got that dinosaur in front of them. And they're going to play cards onto their species. There's a few different things you can do. Number 1 is you can give them special traits. So when you do that, you're going to put the card face down on top of your little board. The reason we're going to do that is once everyone's played their cards face down, then we're all going to reveal what we've played. So you won't actually know what traits people have given their dinosaurs until after you've played yours. Another thing you can do is you can discard a card to increase the population of any species you already have by 1. You can discard a card to increase the body size of any species you already have by 1. And you can discard a card to create a new species, in which case you're going to take out a fresh one of these boards. You're going to put in a green marker on the population track at 1 and a brown marker on the body size track also at 1. When you're placing these boards on the table, you want to place them either to the left or to the right of the boards that you already have out there. If you have 2 boards out there, you can't place a third one in between them. You have to place it on the left or the right. And why that matters will come up a bit later on. Once you've done that, you can discard however many cards you want from your hands by putting them at the bottom of the deck and drawing that many new cards into your hands. The next player is going to go, everyone's going to go around, they're going to do what they're going to do, and then everyone's going to reveal whatever traits they gave their dinosaurs. The key thing about the trait cards is you can never have more than 4 on a given dinosaur. So if you ever would put a 5th card on it, you just have to choose which trait you're going to get rid of at the time you're putting that 5th card on. You also can't have the same trait more than once on a given dinosaur. So if you already have hard shell on this dinosaur, you couldn't add a second hard shell to that dinosaur. You'll also notice there are a couple of cards out there which refer to dinosaurs on the left or right of you. So this one right here has an arrow to left or right. It says a carnivore must have ambush to attack your species that are adjacent to this species. So you'll see that there are certain cards which are affected by the dinosaurs that are to the left or right of you, which is why you want to be a bit strategic about where you lay out given ones on the board. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to modify the environment. So we're going to take these cards that everyone put in the middle of the table earlier, and we're going to flip them face up. These numbers are how much food we're going to add to what's called the watering hole. So this is the watering hole that players are going to take food from. We're starting off imagining that we're partway through the game, and there were 8 sort of food units left, or 9, I can't count. There were 9 food units left over from the last round. And this would mean we're going to add 4 plus 3 minus 1. So we're going to add 6 to that collection. So there are these different discs right here. You'll see that on one side there is meat. On the other side there are plants. So we're going to put plants whenever we're modifying. So we've got 6. But there's another thing that's going to happen, which is that we're going to move this thing right here up here that tracks the weather. So there's a key difference between climate and the original version of evolution, which is that the environment is also changing around you. So right here, we've got snowflakes and we've got suns. What you're going to do is you're going to add up how many snowflakes are on the cards that were in the middle and add up how many suns are on the cards that were in the middle. And whichever there are more of, we're going to move this tracker in that direction. So in this case, we have 2 snowflakes and 1 sun, so we would move it in the direction of getting colder. You'll see some of the cards have multiple suns or multiple snowflakes on them. Some of them don't have any. It doesn't matter how many more snowflakes or suns there are. All that matters is whichever one has more, you're going to move it 1 unit in that direction. As the environment changes, it's going to affect what's going on in the game. So you'll notice that when we get colder, it's a bit less hospitable for food, and so we're going to take 2 food out of the watering hole. If it gets warmer, it's going to get a bit nicer, and we're going to get more food added into the watering hole. So it gets even warmer, we get even more food, then it gets even warmer, now it's getting hot, we get a bit less food than we would have before, and if it gets scorching hot, we're actually going to take 10 food off the board. As it's getting colder, just the colder it gets, the more you're losing food from the middle. What's also going to happen is certain animals are going to be impacted. So what this means is that if the tracker is here, any animal with body size 5 or 6 is going to lose 1 population. If you get here, it means any species with body size 3 to 6 is going to lose 2 population. So the hotter it gets, the tougher it is on the bigger animals. On the flip side, as it gets colder, that's going to be tougher on the smaller animals. So this one here means if the tracker's on the spot, any species with a population of 1 or 2 is going to lose 1. Any species with a body size of 1 or 2 is going to lose 1 population. Any species with a body size of 1 to 4 is going to lose 2, etc. It's possible that means that the population will go below 1 for a given species. In that case, that species goes extinct. You're going to remove that board from the game, and you're going to take the 2 traits that were on that species, you're going to put them in a discard pile, and you're going to draw 2 fresh cards in your hand. So you get a little bit of a benefit when they go extinct, which is you get some of those cards back. The other thing that's going to happen is potentially events might trigger. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to have this board set up, but you're also going to put 1 card from this deck of cards over here on one of the hot slots you can go into. So you'd pull this card, it says warm. So you'd put this over the warm spot on the board. And you draw this card here, it says Ice Age. So we're going to put it over the Ice Age spot on the board. What this means is that whenever this marker gets to this spot, instead of doing what you would normally do if the card wasn't there, you're going to do what you do when the card is there. So in this case, this means that there's a cold snap at this spot, and so you're actually going to lose 3 food from the watering hole. Whenever you've done that, you're going to take the card, you're going to put it in a discard pile, you're going to draw another card, and you're going to put it on a new spot on the board. In this case, we've drawn another card that says warm, so this will go here. This won't matter this turn, but if this thing ever comes back to this spot, then this will trigger. If it ever got all the way over here, which says Ice Age, a meteorite strikes, it says don't add food to the watering hole this round or for the rest of the game. So as you see, they have different kinds of impacts on the game. This one just affected how much food was out there. This one changed the rest of the game colossally. It's also possible this thing won't move at all. If you have the same number of suns and the same number of snowflakes as each other, then it's just going to stay on the same spot, and you'll do whatever you would normally do for that spot again. The fifth phase is feeding. So what's going to happen now is we're going to go around, and every player is going to slowly, one by one, take food from the middle of the table. So get rid of these cards. We don't need them anymore. Get rid of this. We're done with that. So the first player, let's say, has these two separate species. They get to choose a plant food, and they get to add it to the food of one of those species of their choice. Next player goes. They get to do the same with one of their species. What's going to happen is you're going to go back and forth, and you've got to feed these guys until they're full. So we go here. We'll get to how this works in a second. If you finish a turn, and let's say you have two plant food and there are no plant foods, there's no plant food left in the middle of the table, that means you're going to lose population. So right now we've got 3 population. We've only got enough food to feed 2 population. So this green marker is going to drop down to here. At the end of the turn, this plant food is going to go into your little baggie. And at the end of the game, each one of these discs is going to be worth 1 point. There is a special kind of trait, though, which is carnivore. If you become a carnivore, it says now you stop eating plant food and you start eating the other species in the game. So if I have carnivore, here's the way it's going to work. In this hypothetical example, I've got a population of 3, and let's say I've got a body size of 3. What this means is I can eat any other species that has a smaller body size than my guy does. So he has a body size of 3. This guy has a body size of 1, 2, and 1, so he can eat any one of those species. If a species had the same body size it had, then it could not eat that species. There are also certain cards which will protect you from carnivores. So for example, this one says hard shell. That trait means it adds +4 body size when determining if this species can be attacked. So if this trait was on this dinosaur species, then this carnivore could not eat it, even though it has a body size of 1, because when we're evaluating whether or not it can eat it, we have to consider its body size as though it was 5. So let's say it eats this guy who has a body size of 2. Because it has a body size of 2, we're going to take 2 of these tokens from the bag, so not from the watering hole, and we're going to put them right here on the board. It has a body size of 2, so we're going to put 2 of them on the board. We're going to put it on the meat side instead of the plant side. The idea is carnivores can only eat meat. They can never eat plants. We're also then going to reduce this species population by 1 because it was just attacked, so it lost that species. So it lost that population. These 2 plants that are here, they'll both still get scored at the end of the round. So even though this guy's already been eaten, they'll still get these scored. But if it started off the turn with a population of 2, it had 1 plant food, now it gets eaten, its population goes down to 1. Now it can't eat a second food because its population is already down to 1. So each time we go around, you're going to choose which of your species you want to feed. You're going to feed them until they become full. And if it's impossible to feed them, they're going to lose population accordingly. Now the key thing about the carnivore is the carnivore has to keep on eating as long as it can. So if this carnivore's body size is 2, can't eat this species because its body size is also 2, can't eat this species because it has a hard shell, you would have to eat the species that you also control. So in this case, its body size is 2. The other species you control is body size of 1. Because the carnivore has to eat, it's going to eat your species. The species would go extinct, and then you would feed that carnivore. A couple things you'll notice. Some cards allow you to get whatever food somebody else eats. There's a card that says scavenger, which basically says when somebody else eats meat, you also get it. So when you use that scavenger, you could potentially let a creature that otherwise can only eat plants, they could eat meat whenever they scavenge from the carnivore. However, the carnivore can never eat plant food. There are a couple of cards that also have special abilities that say before the food cards are revealed, do blank. So you do that back at the beginning of phase 4. So this one here says before the food cards are revealed, take 1 plant food from the food bank. So that means however much is in the watering hole, we're not going to worry about that. You're going to take it out of this food bank, which is an infinite amount of food, and you're going to feed it before the feeding phase even happens. Those cards are marked as these ones that have these green leaves on the border. Turn's going to end. This dinosaur is going to go to the next player in the order. We're going to start over with phase 1 of a round. If during the phase where everyone is drawing cards, we run out of cards, we're going to shuffle up the discard pile. We're going to deal out the remaining cards that still need to be dealt out for that turn, and then that is going to be the last turn of the game. If the deck runs out because a player has a creature go extinct, and so they draw new cards from the deck to replace the traits that were already on their species, then the next turn after that is going to be the last turn of the game. We're going to do the last turn of our game completely, and then we're going to get points at the end of the game. The way end of game scoring works is each food token in a player's bag is worth 1 point. Each species that you have is worth points equal to its population. So this player would get 3 plus 1 or 4 points. And each trait card on a surviving species is also worth a point. So this player over here would get 3 points. Whoever has the most points is your winner. If there's a tie, the player with the most trait card points is the winner. If there's still a tie, the player with the most population points is the winner. And if there's still a tie, then you both share victory and nobody gets the win. That's how you play Evolution Climate. Enjoy.